The truth is the United States of America goes farther than is even required by international law to avoid civilian casualties. That certainly is a stark contrast to the adversary that we face that seeks to maximize civilian casualties to try to advance their narrative.
Now, the White House yesterday released figures estimating that between 64 and 116 civilians were killed in U.S. drone strikes in the last 6 years outside of Iraq and Afghanistan. During that same period, around 2,500 militants were taken out by drones. So is this just the price of war? For more on this, let's turn to Fox News strategic analyst and author of the brand new book, The Damned of Petersburg. It is out now. Go and grab it. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. Colonel, always great to see you here on the show. What did you think of Josh Earnest's comments the other day?
Well, I suppose it represents incremental progress when he at least acknowledges it to an extent that some civilian casualties will happen. But there's still, I mean, our administrations, the Obama administration certainly, but even the Bush administration, they don't have people engaged at the top who have real military experience or knowledge. So you get this fantasy of surgical strikes and bloodless war. And the Obama administration's carried to the extent where we keep apologizing, and where our soldiers on the battlefield or pilots in the air, they have to worry about being court-martialed for making an honest mistake on a battlefield or over a battlefield. And you cannot win like that. These numbers, 64 to 116 civilian dead. Look, every civilian death may be regrettable, but in the great scheme of things, in the history of warfare, that is chump change or less. We have done an amazing job of minimizing collateral damage to the extent that we're not being fully effective.
Well, the Obama administration doesn't agree with you because the President Obama has tasked his staff with, reducing civilian casualties. Let's take a look at this executive order. The U.S. government shall maintain and promote best practices that reduce the likelihood of civilian casualties, take appropriate steps when such casualties occur, and draw lessons from our operations to further enhance the protection of citizens. Basically saying, let's learn from our mistakes here.
Well, that's politically correct nonsense. I mean, and you can't win. I mean, I'm glad we're taking out some ISIS leaders. I'm glad for any gains we make. But meanwhile, because of this policy of sort of trying to modulate everything, Islamic State has spread around the world. And we need fundamental change if we're going to eradicate, and I mean eradicate, exterminate the threat from ISIS and related organizations. First, you need a real commander-in-chief, not an apologist-in-chief. You need a president who will back our troops and not prosecute them. You need a new military attitude. I mean, our military's become PC. We need to get back into strategic raids, punitive expeditions, call them what they are, and also collective guilt. When a village, a town welcomes Islamic State or other Islamist fighters, hey, you whack the village. No, I don't seek civilian casualties, but the most important thing is to win. And the greatest immorality is not an errant bomb that kills a child. The greatest immorality is for the United States and Western civilization to lose to barbarians.
You have authored a brand new book. It's called The Damned of Petersburg. We have a picture of it. What is this book about?
Well, it's about the most savage, brutal period of our Civil War, the summer and autumn fighting in Virginia in 1864, from a horrific massacre at a place called the Crater, through lesser-known battles that really, every one, win or lose, drove another nail in the coffin of the Confederacy. So it's an incredibly exciting read, I think, but it's also very, very accurate history. So you can read a novel and a narrative, but learn a great deal about the history that's no longer taught in our schools. And it's ultimately about the courage of Americans on both sides of that war.
Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, you're a Renaissance man. Thanks so much, Colonel.
I'm resisting. Most of the Renaissance guys had syphilis.
Oh, well, all right. You tried to resist, but you couldn't. Have a great 4th of July.
You too, thanks.